a Boeing MD-87 cuts through the morning fog. Without warning, the plane carrying 110 people erupts in flames in Milan's Linate airport. This is the most serious accident in Italian history. Incredibly, no one at the airport has yet noticed the catastrophe. Milan, fashion capital of Europe and Italy's economic and financial heart. It is served by 3 international airports. Only one, Linate Airport, lies within city limits. On the morning of October the 8th, 2001, dense fog shrouds the airport. There are nearly 24 aircraft to get off the ground in the next 60 minutes. One of today's flights is Scandinavian Airlines Flight 686. The Boeing MD-87 is scheduled for a routine flight to Copenhagen, Denmark. There are 110 people on board. With thick fog blanketing the airport, the pilots have almost no visibility. They must rely entirely on instructions from air traffic controllers as they navigate their way to the runway. Paolo Zacchetti is a ground controller responsible for guiding flights to the start of the runway. At 8:01 a.m., Zacchetti hands SAS 686 over to the tower controller for final takeoff instructions. The pilots lift the plane off the ground. Then, out of nowhere, there's a huge explosion. Out on the tarmac, ground workers have heard a series of loud noises. One of the workers later stated, "We heard a number of bangs, like an engine. It seemed as if somebody was climbing these steps." But the controllers still don't know there's been an accident. Only now does the tower controller check for the SAS flight on his radar. He can't find it. Another plane is also missing, a private Cessna jet. Finally, 26 minutes after the crash, they find the Cessna burning and in pieces, halfway down runway 36R. It's soon clear that no one from either plane has survived. The crash has killed 110 people on the SAS flight, and 4 on board the Cessna. Inside the collapsed hangar, 4 more people have died, 118 fatalities in all. Investigators soon make a troubling discovery about Linate Airport. Incredibly, runway incursions were very common. Air traffic controllers report there is an average of nearly 1 runway incursion per week. Locating Flight 686's voice recorder will now be a huge challenge. Without the recorders, investigators attempt to recreate the accident. They determined that the MD-87 had travelled for about 40 seconds and gone 1,500 meters before striking the Cessna. It was clear that a collision had occurred on the main runway. The MD-87 had continued its run, deviating slightly to the right until hitting the baggage hangar. Since the Cessna was not equipped with a cockpit voice recorder and the CVR from SAS Flight 686 had not yet been found, investigators have only one record of what happened: the air traffic control recordings. The Cessna was instructed to go north from the apron, along taxiway Romeo 5, to a taxiway that runs parallel to runway 36R. This route should have kept the Cessna off the runway. Investigators made a shocking discovery. The Cessna went south from the apron, not north as instructed. Thinking they're going the right way, the Cessna's pilots drive past several signs that they're approaching an active runway. At that moment, the tower clears the MD-87 for takeoff. The Cessna pilot thinks he's on the R5 taxiway. He makes a fatal mistake. With the MD-87 now traveling at 260 kilometers an hour, he taxis across the runway. Investigators are beginning to suspect that something about the airport, not bad pilots, may be the cause of the Linate crash, and the frequent runway incursions there. They look for route identification signs that are supposed to help guide the pilots. The markings were in a very poor condition and surrounded by high grass. For an unfamiliar pilot, it would have been difficult to understand where was Romeo 5 and where was Romeo 6. The faded markings help explain why the Cessna turned right when it should have turned left to avoid the runway. After searching through the wreckage, investigators eventually found the plane's cockpit voice recorder. The CVR was carefully analysed, and it was found that the Scandinavian Airlines crew did receive the proper clearance to proceed down runway 36R. The investigation has identified one final factor that underlines how dangerous conditions at Linate had become. There was no ground radar. The old one had been dismantled, the new one was in boxes, and had been there for years and not yet installed. Because of the tragedy, Linate Airport underwent a major overhaul designed to improve safety. The ground radar was finally installed, and the markings and signage were repainted.